All right, so here we are. We're still sort of basking in the afterglow of all this, but as you write in your piece today, I saw it last night actually. The party's kind of over. I mean, they can still celebrate and do their White House bit and all that, but almost immediately they had decisions to be made. I know that they decided on Rendon. They picked up his option. They picked up Doolittle's option. And then, of course, all these guys, they're eligible for free agency. And the two big ones that everybody's talking about is Strauss and Rendon. And you could touch on this, two totally different cases here.
Yeah, I mean, interesting because they're both homegrown guys that share an agent in Scott Boras. But I could really see them going different ways. I mean, start with Strasburg. So, he signs a 7-year, $175 million extension that kicked in 3 years ago, and it had opt-outs. And he told me this summer, I asked him about the opt-out in probably July because it was coming up, and he said, it's really an after the season thing. And what he said at the time was, for me, it's about winning. I know I'm getting later in my career, and I want to make sure that I have a chance to win. Well, now they've won, and this organization, however you pick it apart, has committed the funds to try to put together a winning team, basically every year since 2012. Boras can see, he considers the extension that Strasburg signed a discounted rate for the one of the best pitchers in baseball, and now he would like to get fair market value. I would expect that these two sides can come together and figure out something that makes sense. It might be something that's along the line of Scherzer's deal that's 7 years and $210 million. Strasburg will be a year older than Scherzer was when he signed that deal, so maybe you knock it down by a year and only give him 6 years. And part of it is on Steven. He has moved his family here. What's his comfort level with the organization, with the town, and how much does he not want to go someplace else?
Yeah, that's a big deal, by the way, that he moved the family here.
I think that is a big deal because he's always been billed as a West Coast guy and might want to go back there and play at some point. That is significant.
Barry, I would always think that someone who's filthy rich like Steven, you always have a place in your hometown or home state, especially if it's the West Coast. But if he sold his house out there, like we heard, and he moved the entire family here, that's big.
Yeah, I agree. And particularly he's not an extrovert. He doesn't strike me as somebody who would want to go and, it's not just meeting new teammates and having a new manager. And, those change even if you stay with the same team. But your whole support system changes. The traveling secretary is different. The clubhouse guys are different. The front office people are different. He doesn't strike me as somebody who wants to go and relearn a whole organization just because, there were a few more zeros or another year or something. That's just a guess. I mean, it just seems to me that these two sides want to be together. They have been together, and they'll probably be able to work something out. I think Rendon is different. Not that he's some sort of mercenary, but I do think he feels like he earned the right to be a free agent, that they did not come with what he and Boras would have considered appropriate offers early enough in the process. And it seems to me that it's unlikely that the Nats will end up with the offer that's the most years and the most money. I think that there's, Texas would be a factor. I think the White Sox are going to be a factor. There are places that pull him. As much as he liked his time here and winning meant a lot, he doesn't have that same kind of roots here that Strasburg does.
And then you also have to factor in, now it's a few years down the road because, as you point out in the article, Soto and Trey Turner aren't even arbitration eligible yet, but they're going to get paid. Soto's going to he might be the highest paid player in baseball at that time. So you just got to budget that as well.
So Mike Rizzo always talks about you have a 1-year plan, a 3-year plan, and a 5-year plan. And so that, that 5-year plan that's after Soto, he's at the end of his arbitration years. You do have to figure out what you're going to do with Trey. He is arbitration eligible this year. His dollars will go up. It won't be crazy. I think he made $3.75 million. He'll get into the probably double that range this year. But is he somebody that you would want to, say, buy out those arbitration years and buy out some free agency years and get him done with a 6 or 7 year deal that gives you security, gives him security going forward, and gives you financial predictability, so that you know what those numbers are as you're getting toward Soto's free agency. Soto is a Boris client as well now, so they don't tend to sign extensions. Strasburg was an exception, wanting to get that done. So those are all things. It's not just about assembling a winning team in 2020, which of course is a priority, but it's also mapping out a road to the future where, are they always going to be in this situation where the homegrown stars are walking away? The only homegrown guys who have signed extensions here have been Ryan Zimmerman and Steven Strasburg, and Strasburg just opted out of that extension. So as much as they've produced good players, they haven't necessarily locked them up long term.
We're joined by Barry Svrluga from the Washington Post, columnist who writes an article about the Nationals and how their party is over because free agency is looming. What are their plans should Rendon move at third base?
Well, it's an interesting one. I mean, they played Carter Kieboom at third a lot in the Pacific Coast League AAA with Fresno because they weren't certain about what forward. My understanding is he performed well there, that, he's kind of a taller guy anyway. He may not be he may be more suited to third than to second. I mean, it's so obvious how to solve their issues if Rendon came back, because then you have your third baseman, Kieboom, you can kind of bring along slowly at second, and you're cost controllable there. The free agent that you would think people would turn to immediately would be Josh Donaldson. There's some baggage there in terms of clubhouse fit. He's kind of a squeaky wheel, or has that reputation. There's a reason a player of that caliber has bounced around a little bit. Atlanta apparently does want to take a run at keeping him together. He was such a big part of that lineup with Freddie Freeman and then the kids, Acuna and Albies. So that's the obvious kind of short-term place that I don't know whether the Nats would be interested in Donaldson, but just logically that's the place that you turn. So it's either an internal solution with a rookie, or you go out and get somebody to replace Rendon, which I think we all know whoever steps into that spot, if it's not Anthony Rendon, that the lineup just isn't as good as it was with him.